Teachers of Reddit, what is the best roast you ever told a student? The other day another teacher came into our class who has a bald head and he just got it waxed or something, and my mate says, "Fresh polish, sir?" And the teacher fires back with, "Anything for your mother, mate." Class went apeshit. Teacher, my mother, please sit down, the lesson has started. Student, you can't tell me that, I'm not a dog. Teacher, I know you're not a dog, because a dog is able to do that simple command. She is still proud about that one and tells it at family gatherings. I'm not a teacher, but this is a legendary one that I've heard. The kids are in a math class, and one kid just raises his hand and, "When am I ever going to use this in real life?" The teacher says, "You won't, but the smart kids will." My maths teacher in secondary school stuck my middle finger up at her, only one finger for a woman my age. My 15-year-old self was mortified. "You won that battle, Ms. Walcott." I'm not a teacher, but I remember when I was 13 we had a really laid-back, jokey science teacher. When one of my mates asked if he could go to the toilet, my teacher let him, but just as he was about to get to the door the teacher shouted that he'd forgotten something. My mate turned around to see my teacher holding a magnifying glass and a pair of tweezers. While explaining how reproduction works, one of my students was making gnarly comments, so I said, "Don't worry, you won't be getting any." My high school teacher put the sign up by the clock that said, "Time will pass, but will you?" May not be a roast, but my high school teachers were very dry. I had a kid picking on the religious girl in class, asking her all sorts of tricky theological questions just so he could catch her out or something. When he asked, "Does hell exist?" I said, "Yes, it does. It's here, in the classroom, with you." I had a really fun teacher everyone liked, and when students were talking about their various weekend exploits, he'd stare at them and then go, "Has anyone ever told you that you're an idiot? I'm not calling you one, but has anyone ever told you that?" I got random breakouts and I was talking to my English teacher about how a big forehead pimple I had was finally going away, and I also had a cold sore on my lip, and so I told him all excited, "Look, it's going away." And he says, "Yeah, and it fell down to your lip." Frown. Not a teacher, but there was this small annoying kid on my class, and one day he came to school with a graduation hat. He started to be annoying and said something to the teacher, so the teacher said, "Where did you graduate from? Puppy school? Your parents married in vain." My biology teacher was a bit of a dickhead. Always making jokes about how boys were better than girls, making remarks about people's appearance, etc. He also used to beat people with a 1-meter-long ruler, but that's a story for another time. Anyway, we started the chapter about sexual reproduction, and at the end of the chapter we would do a graded dissection of either the male or female reproductive system of rabbits. My teacher was explaining how the female reproductive system worked before turning to one of my classmates and said, "Q, better pay attention, this is the closest you'll ever come to seeing what a woman looks like under her clothes." 3rd grade. Class troublemaker is galloping around the classroom pretending to be a horse. Teacher is continually telling him to go to his seat. He finally starts to gallop to his chair when the teacher walks up, takes his chair, looks at him and says, "Horses don't sit." Made him stand the entire rest of the class. I think about that moment a lot. One of my favorite grade school memories. An English teacher, not me, was teaching the lay-lay-lay/lie-lay-lie/ thing, and he did so by drawing up a table. The rows were the tenses, and the columns were icons for each action. There was someone laying down a sword, someone lying in bed, and someone telling a lie. Name / is handsome. I didn't intend it as a roast, but I got a long serious look and a pause when I told a student, "You're smart enough to be president, but with your manners, you're going to get fired from McDonald's instead." Not a teacher, but my friend was, and still is, annoying sometimes and looks for some laughs every now and then. We sit down on a bench during lunchtime and we see a teacher walk by. She calls over to the teacher, "Hey sir, gimme that bin. We have some trash." He looks back at us and yells, "Why, do you want me to put you in IT?" After announcing the upcoming quiz for the umpteenth time. Student, wait. What? You can't spring a test on us with 1 day notice. Me, I've been announcing it daily for 2 weeks. Student, I never heard it. Me, it's okay. I only wake you up for the really important announcements. Class roared. Physical science class back in middle school. We had a super cool and chill teacher, and one of the students in the class was a really weird kid, but the teacher really liked him. Teacher also liked to pick on and tease his students. We got to boron on the periodic table and he said, "Boron, that student's name, but with an M." One day a kid from my health class brought a fidget spinner to play with. My health teacher took one look and told him, 2017 called and wants their toy back. Put it away. I was joking around with a student one day, and he was making some insults about my name. In response, I asked him, "Do you know what I like about you?" "What?" he replied. I said nothing. He laughed about that. The next day, our guidance counselor pulled me aside with a worried expression. I got a call from student's mother. "Did you tell student you like nothing about him?" It turned out that the kid told his mother about that because he thought it was funny, but she was like, "How dare a teacher say that to my child," and she called the school to complain. Fortunately, the administration believed my report of how it had happened. When I was in 7th grade, a new kid who was mixed, but looked black, would always chant about his pride that he was black or whatever. Whenever he would get in trouble with the teachers or another kid got pissed with him, he would always reply with, "It's 'cause I'm black, right?" People always were annoyed with him. One day during a music class, he was talking about Black Friday and how he would steal stuff and beat people to get pass, which was a lie. Teacher comes in and hears him say, "I can't wait for Black Friday," and the teacher straight up replies with, "Why? 'Cause you're black." Class started dying of laughter and the black kid goes on his phone and shuts himself away from everyone. Still probably the best roast I have ever heard. Students sitting with 3 friends, 1 in 4 people in town the school is in, have an STD. Pointing to friends, 1, 2, 3, 4. As he said 4, he pointed to himself and smiled like an idiot, as if to say he had sex. Disregarding the nastiness of implying that he had himself an STD, I said, "Student name, you don't need to worry about it. You can't catch anything from your hand." In 8th grade, we had a mock constitutional convention and we were each assigned a real person to portray. The class clown was assigned Benjamin Franklin. When questioned on her decision, my teacher's response was, "I tried to think of who would be perfect for the role and no one came to mind. Then I thought of who would be the worst possible reincarnation of Ben Franklin. And here we are." I had a student who tried to get everyone to call him by his rapper name, what included the word moist. I refused. When trying to get others to do this, he asked me how it made me feel. Drier than the Sahara Desert. I never did call him that. I was about to start a lesson when a goofball kid from another class I also teach walked to the still open door. Sounds slightly better in Finnish, but whatever. "Hey teach. My next lesson is boring. Can I come to this one instead? I'm sorry student name, but this is a 7th grade lesson. An 8th grader like you would be at an unfair advantage. Or, how come can't still be on the 7th grade? I also wonder this every single day." Not a teacher, but when the class heard that my sister's teacher was getting married, the one bully in the class laughed pretty loudly. Our teacher immediately tore that pos a new one, saying that with his attitude he wouldn't ever find someone. I once had a student who thought he was the class clown and bragging about all the pills his mum has taken. He was being loud and talking over everyone in the class during an open discussion, and I responded with, "I can think of a pill your mother should have been taking." First day of class. Walked in to see a giant cock and balls drawn on the whiteboard. Okay, this isn't entirely unexpected from a bunch of low-ability 14-15-year-old boys from very religious families. Start to wipe it off. It's been done in permanent marker. Hearing lots of snickering from a particular corner. Small voice whispers to me, "If you go over it with dry wipe, it'll come off, miss." Considered the implications of the head walking in as I'm painstakingly going over the outline. Slowly, I turn my head towards the source of the snickering. 3 boys are then instructed to do it for me. "You need to pay more attention to the base of the shaft, Michael, you've missed the tip of the glands." Once it had been done and the entire thing had been erased, I ended the 10 minutes of agony for them by announcing, "Right, just before we start the work you will now be continuing into your lunch break. I just want to say one thing. If that artwork is in any way, shape or form a self-portrait, I strongly suggest that the owner gets himself to a doctor, as pennies will interfere with both masturbatory and, if a miracle occurs and they find themselves somebody actually willing to copulate with them, sexual satisfaction." I was teaching a contraception lesson to a group of 14-year-old boys. We had just finished practicing putting condoms, and moved into female contraception. The boys rapidly lost interest and started getting rowdy, disrespecting the school nurse who was leading the lesson. I got their attention back and announced, "If any of you are ever lucky enough to get a girlfriend, it will be important that you understand how this works. Pay attention." Quiet fell over the class and they behaved for the rest of the period. I was teaching a programming course at a college and got tired of students asking if I could give them a practice exam prior to the midterm. One day I walked into class and wrote on the whiteboard, "Practice exam." It took a minute, but someone pointed out that I had misspelled practice, so I turned and looked up at the whiteboard and then exclaimed, "You're right, there is no F in practice exam." I was substitute teaching last spring in a high school math class. Pretty easy gig. The students were just doing worksheets while I wrote bathroom passes and monitored behavior. One kid is trying to push my buttons by singing Mo Bamba by Sheck Wes. When he got to the line "I got hose," I interjected, "No you don't." It effectively got him to stop singing. Nothing less cool than being roasted by the sub. My 7th grade science teacher is the best person I know for roasts. He's bald BTW. The class clown was acting like he usually does and was trying to be funny. The science teacher said, "Oh look at, name," he did his usual crack in the morning at the bus stop. You know, before getting on the bus he gives it a quick sniff. We went crazy at that one. Another time my friend asked, "How old are you?" He replied with, "Old enough to please your mom." Again, we went crazy.